Welcome to the InforMaven AI Update, a podcast for higher education administrators to discuss the practical use of AI and intelligent agents. I'm JD Mosley-Matchett, the founder and CEO of InforMaven, a company that helps you work smarter by harnessing the power of intelligent agents. And this month, our guest is Brian Moynihan, the Director of AI and Automation Projects at Duke University and author of the best-selling book, AI Culture Shift. What are the first steps for AI readiness? Institutions often talk about AI readiness. What first steps should a university take if leadership feels like they're behind on AI adoption?
First, start with mission. So one of my models that I was talking about, I call the MAP model. And it's basically the mission, AI, and then everything else, people, processes, and plans. That's MAP. And I think, to begin with the end in mind, you begin with your mission. So why do you exist as a company, as an organization? Why do you exist in higher education? And I think that comes down to this idea. Clayton Christensen uses this idea of the job to be done. So Clayton Christensen's famous for disruptive innovation, a term that a lot of people know. And the question is, what is the job to be done? So famously, people aren't buying, drills from Black & Decker. They're buying a solution to the problem that they need. They need a hole in their wall, so they buy a drill. But if there was another way of getting that same hole in the wall, or another way of hanging up, a painting on their wall, or whatever it is their problem is, then they wouldn't necessarily buy a drill to do it, right? And so you have to think about that from the point of view of a university. What are we trying to achieve? We're trying to educate these set of people. And what other ways might we do it? So if we're thinking about a totally radically new environment where everything shifts because of AI, because of market changes, because of demographics, whatever's changing in the world, and maybe new competitors like, online programs and things like that, or people just like learning for themselves on YouTube, whatever the alternative might be, you have to think from the beginning, why are we doing what we're doing? What makes us distinctive? And again, I think that's a sort of question where maybe you have a mission statement and you can just read it off the website and it's a sentence, but if people don't feel it, if they don't live and breathe it, then it won't be there. So you begin with that mission. And then I borrowed this concept from finance, which is called zero-based costing. So if you had, for instance, a spreadsheet of everything you're supposed to do for your budget from last year and then change it for next year. The coward's way of going forward is just add 3% to everything and ship it, right? And that's the wrong way of doing it. It's not strategic, right? A better way of doing it is to rethink what you need and don't need this year compared to last year. The one way of doing that is zero-based costing. Everything begins with zero. And then you start adding things back one at a time. Most important things first, and you keep adding them back. So to me, that concept is you begin with your mission, and then you start with AI, and then you add things back one after another, right? And so that P is people, processes, and plan. So you might find that the people you have need to be retrained. Again, I don't think an all or nothing vision of AI and jobs is like this AI is going to steal people's jobs. I don't think that usually works because people's jobs are pretty complex. So for instance, Ethan Malik, who many people who are listening to this may follow, who's amazing. I'm just reading an article with him today, and they were talking about, there were a lot of predictions, for instance, that radiologists would go away because, AI is going really good at reading x-rays, but they haven't. In fact, I think maybe there's even more radiologists than before. But even if that aspect of what a radiologist does, which is read the x-ray, was gone, there would still be so many other things they have to do to integrate into the healthcare system, to the processes and everything else, but there's still a role for that. And I think people out there who might be afraid of their own role, maybe we'll take some solace in that. Basically, any job description is going to be made up of a series of tasks, some of which are automatable, some of which are not, some of which are partially automatable. And then I think that we're definitely going to see a shift and where we're going. So I think that has to be a new mindset. But to come back to your original question of, if you're just getting started in AI, where do you begin? I think it begins with a cultural transition and before a technical one, in the sense of we start with a mission, we begin, run a listening tour, go and find out who at your organization is using AI, because I'm sure they're using it in their daily lives, many people, and maybe in their jobs, and they may not want to tell you, but doing informally, pretending that it's not happening isn't great. Because you might have some things that are not so great. But finding some way of taking those sort of informal things, hopefully not in a punishment, punitive way, but bringing it forward, that's a big part. You want to build a mindset. So like Connor Grennan, who's another person who I really like, is a good person to follow in the space, talks about, if you get a treadmill, it doesn't make you healthy. The treadmill itself, being in your room or whatever, it doesn't help. It helps when you get on it and you use it. And that's part of AI, right? And so you need to start building that. So you need to build in some literacy around it. You start with some small wins and you build up from there. But I've heard a lot of people say you're not really behind in the sense that like the technology keeps like growing by leaps and bounds. As we talk, OpenAI in October of 2025 has released Agent Builder and things like that that make it easier than ever to build agentic workflows. And really, somebody who doesn't really have a long background in that could do it with a little drag and drop, embed it, make it look good with a widget, optimize their prompt, put in new data sources, RAG and vector storage. They're getting easier and easier to do. So you're not too far behind, but I do think it's a cultural transition that needs to happen, and it's a mindset transition. And that when you start bringing up AI, it's going to bring up what problems in your operations. It's going to bring up missed aspects of your mission. It'll bring things, but it's part of this transformation, which is like sociocultural, I suppose, within every organization. Every time you bring in a new technology, it's going to shift the way that people are, and so change management is going to be a big part of that as well.
Please visit InforMaven AI to hear the entire interview.